Hey everyone, and welcome back or welcome to my channel. Today's topic will focus on Lee Chaeyeon and my thoughts on the current state of her career. With the recent influx of comments after Cherry Bullet's disbandment, I thought maybe it might be a decent time to kinda highlight another artist to hopefully bring more attention to them. This was also kinda inspired by my own side discussion towards the whole Le Sserafim vocal discussion, which has exploded even more with the recent appearance at Coachella. The main idea was how people were so critical on the whole skill-based issues, yet this doesn't necessarily translate to the same appreciation and success for Chaeyeon. But yeah, the plan is to elaborate on the different factors I think that are influencing her career, and so before I start, I'd appreciate it if you can like and subscribe to my channel. Without further ado, let's start off with the first factor. The first factor that gets mentioned in both an honest but also can get disrespectful is the contrast of Chaeyeon's visuals to her skills. During her time in IZ*ONE, she ranked pretty high as one of the few members who were considered as an all-rounder. During this time is when she would also be constantly brought up in discussions as one of the top female idol dancers. However, like we've seen with the current recent discourse about skills with Le Sserafim and even now Islet, having skills doesn't necessarily translate to support or success, despite the criticism or hate that might be given to those that don't have the same skills. As we've seen with the different groups and soloists who have reached major success, there are many factors that explain why they've become so successful. I mean, to receive a much stronger domestic fan base, visuals have a greater influence to their stand abilities, which unfortunately Chaeyeon doesn't meet much of the beauty standards of Korea. There isn't a need to completely meet all the beauty standards, but considering the visual aspects of K-pop artists and how each era is also marketed, visuals are always in rotation as a thought of consideration. This seems to be an underlying reason for Chaeyeon's lack of success domestically. I mean, even during her IZ*ONE days, she seemed to have a more notable international fan base in comparison to her domestic one. This didn't mean that the domestic audiences were not recognizing Chaeyeon, as they would acknowledge her skills as a dancer. However, this didn't translate too much into support towards her solo activities, as it wasn't a strong enough factor to become a complete fan. As for international audiences, skills and talent seem to be a more notable factor that is valued in terms of stand abilities. However, similar to the domestic fan base, acknowledgement doesn't translate to complete support, as the next factors further add to her fan base not being that prominent. To debut her as a soloist or to debut her in a group. I think this was another pivotal decision made by WM Entertainment and potentially even RBW that influenced Chaeyeon's success post IZ*ONE. Despite the general consensus from predictions of post IZ*ONE that Chaeyeon would suit debuting as a soloist, in hindsight there was also so many factors as to why she would also have suited a group debut instead. I mean, I do get that her skills were pretty legit during IZ*ONE, and in being a soloist she would have been able to get more of a spotlight on herself. However, this does go back to the whole skills versus visuals discussion, in that many factors contribute to success. It just seems like the combination of skills and factors that were working towards Chaeyeon's success wasn't that impactful enough to see her having a thriving career unless more work was put towards marketing her properly. As well as that, being a soloist can take a mental toll on the idols, considering they are going through it alone. More eyes would be on Chaeyeon as she becomes the center of attention, which seems good in establishing oneself. However, that also means more of a critical look at Chaeyeon's every move. This is in comparison to being in a group where there's a bit of balance that can happen with Chaeyeon being able to flex her skills while also having other members complementing her in other aspects, as well as just providing support to balance the group's cohesion. From Chaeyeon's track records through survival shows, she seems to struggle a lot with confidence and seems to constantly need reassurance to better her abilities to perform. There is a slight disclaimer that the survival shows can be heavily edited. However, this is just that added layer as to why a group debut could have suited her more. This is not completely to say WM made the wrong decision, as there seems to be an original intention to debut her in a girl group. It seems as though after WM got acquired by RBW, most of the WM trainees had to leave with only Chaeyeon remaining. Nothing has been confirmed in what exactly happened. However, we can slightly infer that it relates to the RBW's acquisition, as the other WM trainees who appeared in Produce 48 stayed within the company for all 2.5 years while IZ*ONE was still promoting. It wasn't until the acquisition is when we would see them coincidentally all leave around the same time. As well as that, this could also explain Chaeyeon's late debut in comparison to the other IZ*ONE members. And so, this may not be completely WM's fault. However, with the cards that have been dealt, the company would have needed to play their cards right to tip it in their favor, which the next factor will show a bit more as to why it didn't really happen. The next factor is the representative of her career as a soloist and how they have received mixed reception. For Chaeyeon, she's only had 3 releases. She's still relatively newish into her solo career, so there is a bit of leeway that can be given. However, her title tracks has not been consistently impactful enough to see her have a clear growing fan base. I mean, starting off with her debut of Hush Rush, the concept was interesting. However, this song didn't necessarily encapsulate Chaeyeon's idol image or leverage much of what she was known for, and so most of the initial success came from post IZ*ONE fans and solo fans. The next comeback would be Knock, which is where we would see most of the best reception for Chaeyeon's music. This title track was a bit more brighter than her debut, with the higher BPM, which would also be backed up with fun choreo that really highlighted Chaeyeon's dance skills. This song would also bring Chaeyeon's career to slightly new heights, considering she would also start to chart domestically. However, the success of Knock would not really be built upon, as the most recent comeback of Let's Dance has fallen slightly flat. This song felt like an attempt to replicate the vibes of Knock without having the right aspects to elaborate on this variation. From listening to the 2 songs, I feel like the high teen-ish or Disney sound from Let's Dance seems to be the most notable difference as to why I don't think it was received as much. I feel like that whole sound doesn't suit Chaeyeon. Overall, her releases have not been vocally criticized as being bad per se. However, there just seems to be no conceptual or musical direction quite yet. With the influx of existing successful groups, newer groups that have garnered instant success, or newer groups with a better solid foundation, this is leaving little room for making any quote-unquote mistakes, as fans have the ability to easily pivot elsewhere. Chaeyeon is a bit of an exception to this circumstance, as she has been in the industry for a while now, giving her that notability to stay relevant-ish. However, the next and final factor will focus on this attention and how it won't be sustainable. And finally, the thing that has kept Chaeyeon in the limelight, giving her the retained attention, but not necessarily making her successful, is her extensive history competing in survival shows. I thought I would briefly explain the impacts of them, each in a retrospective manner. Starting with K-Pop Stars Season 3, there isn't too much impact that still trickles through, as they were still kids, and so the only benefit seems to be from gaining JYP's attention and signing with them. The next survival show would be 16, which created Twice. Once again, kinda didn't do too much for Chaeyeon considering she was the first one eliminated. Even to this day, there isn't too much of an association that Chaeyeon has with Twice in comparison to a Natty or a Somi, which is not necessarily the end or be all, but having those connections can add to the further notability of her, even when the music might not necessarily resonate with the listeners. Produce 48 is next, and we all know this is where she would get most of her attention, considering the massive success of IZ*ONE. Following Produce 48, she would then joined Street Woman Fighters under Want Crew, which this show kind of quote-unquote devalued her a little. The show highlighted the difference between idol and professional dancers, with Chaeyeon constantly being looked down upon for not being a competition compared to the other dancers. The negative associations from this initial reception made what was supposed to be her notable skill as an idol seem relatively less impactful. The final and most recent appearance was on Queendom Puzzle, which was short-lived, as she would leave prior to the show fully airing, having only participated in the audition section of it. All these appearances have contributed to Chaeyeon's ability to retain attention. However, this does not address the root problem to maintain her success as a soloist. As survival shows are not typically the end goal, there should be a transition into her music career being the dominant factor for most fans into their continued support for Chaeyeon. As well as that, there is additional hype that can be gained from appearing on survival shows, as there are opportunities that can be utilized realized or created. I would say after Eyes 1, Street Woman Fighters, and even Queendom Puzzle, there seems to be an underwhelming execution to convert this additional attention into sustained success, which further explains the current state of Chaeyeon's career. Final thoughts. I feel like I have to reiterate how early she is still in her career. There's still time for her to continue and to build her success, considering she has the allowance to do this. I feel like with the resume she has built throughout her entire career, she will always be known. Whether this translates into her solo career, we'll just have to kind of see. There does seem to be some slight issues that Chaeyeon is having with her company, as she had to personally pay for some of her staff to fly over to help her in her appearance at RBW's Japan concert. This does further add to the worries of prioritization being placed on Chaeyeon. However, considering it was a RBW concert, the company that she has slight grievances with might not necessarily be WM. In saying that, she is still booked and slightly busy with her own YouTube program that she's hosting, as well as a second solo fan meeting happening soon in Hong Kong. Overall, it seems like she has a little bit of everything in the best ways. However, the main thing that is missing is the stable direction towards Chaeyeon's solo career. And so, hopefully this gets solidified before all her hype completely fades. But yeah, that's it for the video. Thanks for watching, and let me know your thoughts on Chaeyeon's career so far, any other factors you think might be influencing where she's at the moment, and anything else you feel like would add to this video. As for my next video, the only thing I really want to look into is the whole Hybe vs Minhee Jin situation, which has kind of exploded with so much things coming out from both sides. I'm kind of lost in how these perceptual differences are being created. But yeah, only thing about this is that the video might become outdated, as it feels like more information will come out with time. And so there is a bit of hesitancy in doing this video until all information is out there. We'll just kind of see for now, but if you're interested to hear more from me, then please like and subscribe to keep up to date, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!